to everything, and that's why I'm in everything. All eyes on me, all eyes on everything. That means everything. Eyes connected to everything.
Watch
You know
out
I
now.
love it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites on that album.
Man,
Yes.
Definitely
It's
one of our
literally been on
favorites.
repeat. That song lives rent free in my head. I promise you. That's a classic, John. You did that. I've been trying to make videos and send to you, but they never come out perfect, so I just never send it to you. But I'm glad you're here now. So I can just tease you. Excellent. All right. This is things that people don't want to talk about. Brought to you by God Level. These are my co-hosts. My name is Renee. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I am a nurse. I'm a mother. I am an entrepreneur. I have this podcast. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. I'm an aunt. I'm a cousin. I am everything good. John, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
John Skywalker, the Sly Talker here, lyricist, spoken word artist, martial artist, personal trainer, lover of life, student of psychology, and I am a father who has a new album. You guys just heard it in the disclaimer.
Better know it.
That song was titled I Everything from my latest album, Final Dimension. Stream that up, all major streaming platforms. Yes, 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 yes. Salute.
Salute. King Newborn, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Peace, peace, peace. This is King Newborn. You can follow me on all social media platforms. As always, I am of service. Peace, peace, peace to the whole panel.
Peace. Saba Diamond, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Hetepu Ujasun. I am Saba Diamen, teacher of Comedic Spiritual Science, owner and founder of the Abode of Osar Institute of Personal Excellence, personal trainer, nutritionist, father, and grandfather. And as always, I too am of service.
All right.
Peace,
Creation
peace.
Divine, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
You're muted.
You're muted, beloved.
Yeah. Am I muted?
No,
Yeah.
creation.
Okay, I am Creation Divine, and creation was created to create.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Amanda, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Yes, I am Amanda A. Fuller. I say A. Fuller Love. Yes, I am a nurse as well, entrepreneur. Yes, mother, wife. I love how God level says all things good.
All things good, baby.
Yes.
All right, we have a special guest with us this evening to talk about ADHD. Her name is Ivy Turner. I want to thank her for coming on with us tonight. So to share some insight into this, what are we going to call it?
Mental health awareness,
mental health awareness. Yeah, because we are celebrating mental health awareness. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, and every podcast we have this month is going to be dedicated to mental health awareness. So this week we're going to be starting off with something a little light, like ADHD. I'm calling it light because there is some other stuff out there right now. But Miss Ivy Turner is going to take us down the journey of ADHD. You want to go ahead and represent yourself first?
Hi, everybody out there. I am Ivy Nicole Tanner. I am formerly a military U.S. Army broadcaster. I'm a retired veteran. I say that I have ADHD, but ADHD does not have me. I'm real doggone diagnosed. Not an expert, but I have dug into my journey. It took me a long time to figure out a lot about ADHD because my entire family is neurodivergent. We all have some type of neurodivergence. So I learn a lot so I can relate to my kids. I like to impart information, especially about an ADHD diagnosis. Right now, I'm an artist. I'm going into study. I'm going to get my master's in art therapy. So I'm hoping that that'll also kind of push along my agenda of getting the good news or the news period about ADHD out there. So yeah. And I am a lover of all things wonderful, beautiful, since everybody else said
it.
All right. So let's start off with the obvious question.
Yeah.
What is it?
ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Like that
Mm,
was the official term of it. It's also been known as ADD, which is just
mm,
attention deficit disorder. Basically, what that means, I don't know why they call it attention deficit disorder because we can't pay attention, so we don't have a deficit of it, right? So that's not necessarily, So I actually like the fact that somebody called it Dave, and I was like, "What is Dave?" And they were like, "Dysregulation, something variability of your execution function." I was like, you know what, that sounds better, so I just call it Dave because it's easier to get out. But basically, it's just we have a lack of executive function,
mhm.
which causes us in turn to sometimes just not we just can't initiate tasks like neurotypicals can. So yeah, and if you have any more questions, I don't want to expound too much until you guys, yeah,
Oh
until you
yeah,
guys
oh yeah.
just ask me questions about it, because yeah, I can talk all day long.
And I just want to highlight that part where you said neurotypical, right? So everyone with normal, I guess, normal executive functioning is yeah, we gotta do it. Yeah, we gotta do that. Yeah. So normal folks have it's called neurotypical.
Yes, you guys are called
Okay.
neurotypical. And if you have a divergent, that's a lot of different things. Neurodivergence is not just ADHD, it's also autism, it's dyspraxia, it's dyslexia, dyscalculia, like things of that sort. Like it's just if you have a different brain and your brain learns and you receive information in different ways, then that's considered a neurodivergence.
Ooh, neurodivergence. All right, so let's hop into those symptoms a little bit more, right? And then we'll also go to some of the questions that was posted throughout the week. So some of the symptoms. I mean, we can start with some of yours, and then we can kind of broaden it. But I know that there's like clusters, right? So it doesn't present itself the same way in everyone. Everyone's not going to exhibit the same symptoms, or even to the same degree, right? So could you just lay out what your symptoms have been?
So my biggest issue throughout my life has been a lack of focus and time blindness. Time blindness has been my biggest thing. And what time blindness is a lot of times when you're ADHD, because of the fact that you can't necessarily focus, and you're unaware of how time moves. Um, we get blind to time. Like you can tell, like a neurotypical can tell you it's going to take 2 hours to bake this cake. For someone with ADHD, they might be like, yeah, I'm adding up all the minutes. I'll take 45 minutes. And then the next thing you know, you're late for everything, right? So my
Mm,
biggest issue has always been being late. Like I used to live, and anybody, if you're listening, you're from my old job. I used to live 5 minutes away from my job, and I was still 25 minutes late, like all the time. Like it didn't matter what it was. So that was one of my biggest ones. Another one for me, I think that I don't know if I said, what did I say before that? See, that's another thing, poor memory. Um, so we have a lack of executive function, and sometimes that also comes you also display something called rejection sensitive dysphoria.
mhm,
I'm just a sensitive person by nature because I'm just an empath. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And rejection sensitive dysphoria is when you're sensitive to rejections that haven't even come yet. So it's like someone can, like, you can say something to someone, you can just say hi to me. And if I perceive that you didn't want to talk to me or something of that sort, like I automatically, I'm like, well, what just happened? So those are the couple of that people don't know about. But you also have anxiety, depression, um, hyper focus, sometimes
mm,
CPTSD from growing up in a household. And if you're black with ADHD, the traumas that we have generationally and how parents raise this, that CPTSD is strong, baby. Like it can hit you
mm,
for real.
Oh yeah.
mm.
Hmm.
Mm.
All right, let's see. Let's see. All right, so I have a few homeboys, and even my stepson, he has it. Excessive talking. Love y'all, but my God, y'all, yeah, I thought I was long with it. Y'all can go.
Listen, I'm regulating the heck out of myself right now. I'm trying not to take over. Like seriously, I've learned. So yes, we can talk, baby.
uh, I know that on the hyperactive side, there tends to be a lot of fidgeting, hand taps, squirming in the seat. restlessness, um, the interruption. The
Definitely.
interruption gave it. Yeah, the interruption gave me up there. I know the blurting out answers and questions. That's a big one. Um, the impatience, difficulty in waiting on your turn. What else? What else? What else?
Mm.
That's because we don't have a lot of impulse control, like the lack
Right.
of so because executive function is in the prefrontal cortex, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have the dopamine to kind of sustain the executive function that neurotypicals have, right? So it's pretty much like you're at a base like animal level. I mean, not animal level,
Mm.
but you're going from the what's the back of the ganglia, the back of the head. You're going from your I don't want to say prehistoric instincts, but sort of. You know what I'm saying? You pretty much where if you
So the
don't have
R
the
complex.
that part, right? So
Yeah.
it's like we don't have that impulse control. And my youngest, she has ADHD. She's got the hyperactive component. I have what's called ADHD, but it's inattentive. So she's got the hyperactive component. My son has the inattentive component, and then
Mm.
yeah, like I said, everybody in that, even the dog. The dog is he's ADHD too. So I'm just saying. Nobody has any impulse control in this house, so but we learn and we regulate. We regulate our emotions so that way we
Oh.
can, so that way we can deal with it.
Sounds like a fun household.
I'm not gonna
Mm.
lie, it's lit. I'm serious. It's fun, like all the time.
I can
Seriously.
imagine. I can imagine.
How do you do with like leisure activities? Calming activities.
So calming activities, we relax and we stem differently than once again neurotypicals, right? So like when people talk about mindfulness and meditation and things, you think somebody sitting down in the lotus position, doing like that, right? Like you're getting your zen on. Yeah, that doesn't work for us. For us, we have to our meditation and our the way that we emotionally kind of calm down is different. We literally have to have something that is in the body and that it is on a beat. Like my daughter, she likes to spin. She likes to spin around in a circle, and it drives neurotypicals crazy. But I'm just like, let her do that because that's her way of emotionally regulating herself and calming herself down. You know,
Mm.
my oldest son. Oh, I forgot to talk about my oldest son. My oldest son, he's ADHD, so he's got autism and ADHD, right?
Mm.
So the way that he stems, he kind of shakes his body, or he listen. Well, when he was young, and he listens to music. That's what gets him calm if he has to do a task that he has to focus on. So that's how we relax. That's how we calm down. Those are our things, being out in nature. Sometimes just tapping, listening to music, watching something that's repetitive that we've seen before. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I like I get a favorite show and I watch it over and over and over again, like a million times because I know it. I know what's going to happen, and it's like the predictability. It's emotionally stabilizing. So yeah,
Oh
I just feel
wow.
like you keep talking about me.
girl.
I feel like you keep talking about me. I have a show that I watch over and over and over and over and over.
Hmm.
My sister will call me and she be like, "Oh, we're back on Game of Thrones again." I see, and I'd be like, "Yeah."
It's Game of Thrones. Okay, I'm not even going to fangirl right now. I can't. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And being late to work. I literally pulled up in the parking lot at 6:50 and still didn't walk in the building until 7:22.
That was me too. Hmm.
I just I they be like, Renee, we need to get you here on time. I have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to get there at 7 on time. Because I
I
have
believe
to
it.
walk around and do stuff. I have to make coffee. I have to drink 2 cups of coffee. I have to do laundry. I have to clean up something, wipe down something. Then I have to sit and I have to think for about 30 minutes about shit that happened days ago.
That's
It's
your meditation.
it's
That's
weird.
that's your
And,
meditation.
and I do that.
Hmm.
Oh, I put the W in weird. I love it.
You don't. I promise you. I can relate.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep talking about me. Keep talking.
I'm like, what you want me to bring up? Because I mean, everything that you just said is like,
Everything.
that's my life, like
Yeah.
seriously. I tell people, so I have strategies in place to deal with my
Good.
my days, right? Because of the fact that my biggest issue is time blindness, I literally tell my friends, if I need to be somewhere and being on time is important to you, for me, you need to lie to me.
Please do.
You
By
have
all
to lie to me.
means,
You have to.
lie.
Please
I
tell
feel like
me it's an
doing
hour before, because that means that I will actually make it 15 minutes before the event is supposed to
it.
start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be
And
on
my
point.
friends, my good friends, they do it. They know to lie to me, right?
Lie to me.
And before, I didn't have a lot of verbiage for the way that I felt about rejection and the rejection sensitive dysphoria and stuff. But I've taken a very extensive mental health journey like in the last 24, 36 months. So now I have the verbiage, and if I'm feeling rejection sensitive, I can take a beat, I can pause and be like, why are you feeling this way? Where is it in your body? Okay, now let's go ahead and break that thing down and recognize that what they were saying was probably, which most definitely, it's 96% of the time, was not about you. It was about them. And I tell my daughter that, I tell my sons that, and that's like those are the strategies that we use in here to deal with our ADHD symptoms.
Mm. I was late to my wedding.
I was too. It's in my will.
It was
Will
like,
me in
where's she
the
at?
funeral
Everybody, she's
15 minutes late.
I was somewhere. I don't remember where I was at, but I was late to my wedding. I literally, it was because of me being late that we started late. And then when I got there, everybody was mad. Dash, well, we got to get you ready. Da, 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 da. I'm going to be late to my funeral. I promise you I'm going to be stuck in the highway somewhere.
It's written in my will.
It
It's
is.
written in my will. I told him, I was like, I need to be 15 minutes late. So
Yeah.
Wow.
So they know it's real.
so they know it's real. They know it's me.
All right. So, panel, you guys know somebody with ADHD? Let's start off with aside from we can't use her. All right. So, panel members, go. Sound off. Yes, no, true, false.
Now that I know that Ivy has ADHD, I know someone with ADHD. I'm undiagnosed, but I promise you, she is telling you my life story. We didn't even talk about the hyperactivity when you're focused and you just like zoned in.
Hyper focus. We're gonna get there.
We need to talk about that. See, look, I'm getting off subject already. Go ahead, John.
Newborn. Saba.
Yes, I know some others with ADHD. My priestess, I believe she has it. She believes she has it. Everything that Ivy is saying, it really pertains to her, and she's 70 years old, so she's always all over the place. She can take over the room, when she walks in, and just can talk. Today she had us running over on everything, like over time, and but I've also um, had some of my students or clients, well, they're kind of like students slash clients that I teach meditation to, who could not do the typical way of meditating. So we had to find out other ways to get them to meditate, because calming the mind in the beginning was not an option for them. So we had to find other techniques. But even some of them we took into a ceremony, medicine ceremony, like mushrooms and ayahuasca, that also was effective. So, yeah.
Oh, God level.
For me, being around other calm people actually helps. Someone who's not so as erratic as me or impulsive, they're just very cool, laid back, calm. It helps me to kind of check myself. So yeah, my brother was the first. So I had to give him praise on that. He was the first
Creation.
person. He was. He
All
was
right. You all right.
just stand there and look at me.
He giving
And
you
he was like, you really have to drive that fast. I seen you coming around that corner. You hit that corner pretty fast. And or just being in his presence. And I have to learn to tone it down with him, because he'll sit there with this peaceful, listen, very calm. So I had to learn that, it helps when you have all this erratic behavior. Someone that's calm on the other side helps to balance.
That's the thing. It's called body doubling, and it's a common
Oh,
tactic used by ADHDers.
Wow.
Yep. Finding somebody who is sometimes all they have to do is just be present. If I know somebody is coming to my house, I might not have cleaned up for like 2 weeks, but it will be done in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because one, I know somebody's coming to my house. Two, because I have somebody who's there to body double with me. I don't know what it is about body doubling, but it works for ADHDers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing.
Just calm. Ooh.
Mhm.
Yeah, my friend is very, very calm. Does not get overly excited, and I just be sitting there. Sometimes I be wanna, then I just be like, no. That impulse, and I be like, no, no, no. So yeah, keep going. This is
All right.
interesting.
Creation divine, true or false?
true,
Okay.
true.
Okay, let's talk about
Couple, 1, 2,
I work
7.
with, I work with youth, and so a lot of the youth that I work with um,
Mm.
have ADHD, and
Mhm.
I believe I have it. I've never
Mm.
been diagnosed, but yeah, looking at
Okay.
the symptoms, I have a lot of check marks.
Oh, okay,
Are
okay,
we about to
okay.
play put a finger down?
it.
We should.
We should, you
Yeah,
know,
Oh
we
man.
really should.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Hey, somebody, does anybody have the
The,
DSM
the
criteria in front
questions,
of them
I'm
by any chance?
telling you.
Hold on. Before we do it though, Amanda,
Mhm.
true or false?
True. I do know
True.
someone with ADHD. I work with some people with ADHD, really fast paced nurses, rambling, the time, blindness. I've seen all those things I've seen present in them as well. And I relate myself to a lot of those symptoms.
Yes. When we're great, we're great. Do you hear me? When we are great, we are great. We can run circles around you
Yes.
on the
Hyper
job.
focused. When we are hyper focused,
Literally.
it's a wrap.
I've had people put me out the room. They like, Renee, okay, I see who you are. You are old nurse. You know what you're doing, but please let me do my job. Because I'm just moving. Boom, 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 boom. Let's go.
Mhm.
Let's get it. So yeah, when we're good, we're great.
Hmm.
Oh, when we are on task, honey, we are on task.
And see, that's the part that nobody really talks about. It's like you hear so much dark stuff about ADHD, but
Mhm.
ADHD is a doggone superpower. Like when it's
That's the
used for
superpower.
good,
That is
you
the
know what I'm
superpower.
saying? Like it's uncanny. Like seriously, I used to be, man, I remember like I used to get so hyper focused. Like everything else at the job would be boring, but when it came time for me to create something, oh man, it was like
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
I remember one
yeah.
time I got so hyper focused. I used to write like tech manuals and stuff, and I remember we were doing this art of storytelling class, and I had like 120 pages before I knew it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, where did this come from? Okay, let me just trust the process. You know what I'm saying? And just kept going. And like, there have been times where I'm so hyper focused, you don't eat for 11, 12 hours because you are just
You
so,
just
you're getting
focus.
so much dopamine from that task that
Hmm.
you're like, yeah, I'm not stopping this because this is just providing me a
Oh.
steady stream and nothing else matters, you know? So hyper focus is one of those superpowers that we have. Another one is like we're super intuitive. There's stuff that
Mm-hmm.
like we can see the end of movies before they even happen. You're like, man, 5 minutes into the movie, you're like, I know what's about to happen. I'm done.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
there.
Hmm. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, don't John Wick me. I already know it. you know so those are we've got a bunch of superpowers that are with that. I honestly
Yeah.
think that our strongest one is well, at least a lot of us like is our empathy and our ability, like our creative out the box ideas for things. Like if you know people who have ADHDs, like you can come up with ideas like this. You'll be like, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. But when it comes to
Yeah.
actually initiating a task, yeah, that's where it's like cancel
Mm. Yeah.
hmm
All right. So
Yeah.
the questionnaire. By the way, I want to thank everybody who participated in our group. You guys should join our group if you have not joined our group already. Things that people don't want to talk about on Facebook. Uh, to this question, we had 14 respondents reply true that they knew someone who had ADHD. and one replied false, and two replied unsure. Now, the significance of this question is the segue into this. Um, pros and cons of being diagnosed. Now, this part is in my view, it's pretty important, right? If you have a problem with something, you need solutions. Whether you're going to cope with it, whether you're going to transcend it, whether you're going to cure it, fix it, whatever. You got to have solutions. And one of the problems with mental illnesses and being diagnosed is the label. We can develop an attachment to the label. And sometimes, depending on who it is, there might be a victimization mentality that comes with that labeling, right? So that's one dark side to it. But the pro to being diagnosed is you know what it is. And there's a lot of research that is devoted, empirical research, right? That is devoted to understanding and treating a mental illness such as ADHD. So when we're talking about this problem, ultimately it's like, all right, I have ADHD. Now what? What do I do about it? What do I do about all these symptoms? How do I live my life? Yeah, I got it, but or my kid has it. What is my kid supposed to do when they're falling behind academically? What is my kid supposed to do when they can't participate in certain activities that require, executive function? What do we do? Right. So this is where institutional supports come in, social supports, academic supports, right? Diagnosis gives you access to those resources that will improve your success. And that includes medications, right? So diagnosis is a big deal. Uh, and I know with Google, we do a whole lot of self-diagnosing, right? Cool. That's cool. Like just to get started, like, oh, I have this. Okay. But then you need a second and a third opinion. So then we take it to a professional, right? So we want to encourage you guys, even though we're listing these symptoms out here, this isn't the space to self-diagnose. Okay. We're just saying, hey, if this feels too close to home, perhaps if it's a problem, because that's the other aspect of it. ADHD has to, in some way, impair your normal functioning. It needs to impair your ability to sustain a job, sustain relationships. It needs to impact your life in a distressing and dysfunctional way. So we're not saying, "Hey, you got it," right? But if you
Right.
feel like it hits, go see a
Yeah.
professional.
Go see
Hey,
someone.
what do you
Yeah.
see? Am I lining up right? So I want to talk about this question right here. What are some pros and cons to being diagnosed versus undiagnosed?
Okay. So the first thing, like you spoke of, there are resources. There's lots of different resources for you once you finally get diagnosed. Um, there are all kinds of groups that are out there. You get helps. You can get local, state, county government assistance, and I'm talking about like resources, like places for your kids. If your kid is diagnosed with ADHD, places where your kids can get services, because something that a lot of people don't think of when we're talking about ADHD affects all the senses. So there are auditory processing speed delays, there are
Mm,
sight speed delays, understanding, communication delays, things of that sort. There also, I think it's called dyspraxis, where like people with ADHD, sometimes they're clumsy because you really don't have any idea of where your left and right limits is, and you're unaware. Yeah, hand-eye coordination, things of that sort.
mm,
So it's like you can get early prevention services for your kids. You can get
mm,
early prevention services for yourself. I mean, excuse me. You can get help with your dyspraxis if you're older, and you're just getting diagnosed. Um, so those are like huge helps, and a lot of it sometimes is also community. You have lots of communities where I mean, like you have ADHD for combined inattentive and hyperactive. You got communities for inattentive. You got communities for ADHD for hyperactivity, and they all have helps. They all have someone who is a psychologist who can give you tools to deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with ADHD. And that happens after you're diagnosed. You can come in saying that you're undiagnosed, but literally, if a healthcare professional hears you say, "Oh, I'm coming in to get some helps, but I'm undiagnosed," they're gonna be like, "Oh no, we can't touch you." because they're like, we
Ooh,
really,
yeah.
yeah, because they're like, I don't want to give you, you don't have a diagnosis, and they don't want to give you something, they don't want to give you information that is not ADHD related, especially if you're not,
Hmm.
because that's their job on the line. So there's a lot of different pros and cons from being diagnosed. Now, one of the cons from being diagnosed, everybody's got an opinion. So, some of the cons from being diagnosed is people look at you differently, and if you don't have a strong sense of yourself, you can get lost up in that. You can get carried up in that. Oh, I don't want to have a label. I don't want to have this. I had a friend a long time ago, when she found out that her child was 6. She's 20 something now, but she was 6 when she got diagnosed with ADHD.
Mm.
So we're talking about, 13, 14 years ago, right? I even had a different mindset about having labels back then, right? So she was like, and I was like, well, you sure you want your baby to take medicine? You sure you want people to know that she's got ADHD? Now, remember, I told you this is an unhealed old self. This is a shadow self, right? That used to present all the time. But she told me something and I never forgot it. And I got bad memory. So you know it was important. Okay. She told me, if I am a mother and I love my kid, why am I not going to give them every tool available that can help them live the best life possible? And I was like, that was pretty profound, right? So even though it's a con to being labeled, I still say that it's still a pro to be diagnosed, because then you have ways to deal with it. So I honestly, for me, the cons have been, just the regular ADHD stuff in the morning, not being able to get yourself motivated and all that kind of stuff. But that has to do with ADHD itself and not being diagnosed. My life got better since I got diagnosed. Yeah,
And
That's
I
it
want
what's
to
really
talk
did.
about what, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
no,
I
I
just
was
said it
saying
really
that's
did. That's
what's
it.
up.
So I want to talk about a question that you had posed earlier. So this will be sort of like the segue into it. I thought it was interesting that a lot of Hispanic and Black families typically don't know how to identify ADHD symptoms in their children, right?
Hmm.
And so typically it's the teachers that identify the behaviors um, before the parents do. Now, teachers have degrees in teaching; they're not mental health practitioners, right?
Right.
So a lot of the times the teachers are identifying behavioral health problems, right, in these children, and then they request the evaluation, right? So I think it's also important that our viewers know that if that incidence does happen, you do have parental rights in that case. You can be like, yo, I don't want them to get evaluated. I understand what you're going through. You might, yeah, you have that choice as a parent. You don't have to get them evaluated. But if I mean, the grades, the behaviors, I mean, if the teacher, you got to kind of trust the teacher in some sense. All right, hey, this is how they're acting at school. How are they acting at home? You got to make some executive decisions here, right? And you have to weigh all
Hmm.
your options before you just say, all right, cool, I'm gonna just follow the teacher, right? Because
Hmm.
maybe you want to get them evaluated. Maybe you're just like, oh, the teacher doesn't know what they're talking about. They're just discriminating against my kid. Know the risk. All right.
Hmm.
So we just want to be clear, teachers can't diagnose children, but they do influence a child's chances of being evaluated, and as Ivy was saying, having access to those supports. Just really consider, if you were a child that had difficulty focusing and you're being tested, and I mean, you need extra time compared to other children. You might need extra time on projects, right? That really could affect your success. Just even going to college, right? If that's your pursuit, just going to
And
college and you don't have those supports. Go ahead, Ivy.
No, and I was going to talk about that too. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun from a question that might be posed a little bit down the road, but my oldest, he had an IEP, individualized education program, and before he had a different diagnosis, but it was wrong, right? Because we're talking about 15, 16 years ago, when being on the autism spectrum wasn't even a thing, and either you were just autistic or you had Asperger's, right? So being autistic on a spectrum and having ADHD at the same time wasn't a thing. I'm gonna stick a pin in that. Okay. So he had an IEP, and then my youngest son, who has inattentive ADHD like me, he was so he just got his teachers to write talks too much in class. All his teachers just said talks too much in class, right? So later on, so we finally got him diagnosed, and that's what prompted me to get my diagnosis also, just putting that out there. And he had a 504 plan where they give him extra time on tests, They gave him extra time. They gave him um, extra time for written assignments. Like he could choose his testing modality, whether or not he did it visually or whether or not he did it auditorily. Like he could choose those things. There were
Mm-hmm.
certain things that he couldn't, like reading was just like uh-uh. So he was like, can I get an audio book, or can I get somebody to show me what is it when you work with your hands? Like if you know
Tactile or
yeah, tactile. Like he wanted, like
yeah.
he needed, like if he had some things, let's say he took an engineering class, his answer needed to be a tactile response instead of a written response. I'm telling you, I'm gonna put it out there one more time. I love Washington State. I love Washington State because of the fact that they focus on inclusivity and diversity, and they make space for these kids and their neurodiversities. Like it's amazing. So
I'm
yeah, it's
from
like that's.
Washington.
I'm sorry.
I'm from Washington. I didn't know you were from Washington. Yeah.
I'm not from Washington. I'm from Ohio. Shout out. But
Okay. Okay.
I live in Puyallup. So yeah,
Okay.
You said in Puyallup?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was raised in Tacoma.
Hey
Yeah.
neighbors.
Oh.
Yeah. My family's
First
there
Mm.
too.
beautiful Washington.
Oh.
I love it out here. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, I love it.
Oh man,
I really
power
do.
to y'all.
Yeah.
Water.
He's like, I can't do it. All that rain.
Yeah.
All
There's a
that
lot
rain.
of resources.
Blessing.
It
A
really
lot of
doesn't rain of it.
resources in Washington State.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So you know about, yeah, they were awesome. And my son, he even got he went to Central Washington University. Like he carried over his high school 504 plan, to there. So I mean, it's awesome. Those are the type of resources that you get once you're diagnosed. If you're just undiagnosed and you out here white knuckling it, that they're not going to do that for you. Like no institution is going to do that for you. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that's really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the question right here that she posed earlier this week. We had 9 respondents. 2 of them said older professional women. 4 of them said low income children in major cities. 0 said middle class AAIPI girls. What's AAIP or AAPI?
Asian American, Pacific Islander.
Oh,
Okay, gotcha.
We have a big demographic out here. So yeah.
Okay.
All right.
One for I'm not sure. 2 say girls. The symptoms are different and never often diagnosed. So, what is the answer?
The answer is black boys.
mm,
The issue is, and yes, black boys, not
Hmm.
older women, not anything else. Now, black girls, they don't catch it, so they don't get diagnosed. Period. The problem with black boys is a lot of black boys have ADHD, and it's being either not diagnosed at all, because some parents have, like we were speaking about earlier about the labels and everything. Some people have this idea, oh, I don't want to give my kid a stigma. I don't want to give my kid a label, not knowing that that label is going to help them. The second part of that is that black boys, because of the perception societally, they get
Mm,
diagnosed with something else. They'll get diagnosed as being a problem kid, or having ODD,
mm,
or being sociopathic or something of that sort. And I'm like, no, look up the symptoms of ADHD. This kid has got all of it. The problems emotionally regulating. Like we can't emotionally regulate unless we learn the tools for it. And if you have a family that doesn't, and let's keep it a buck. Black
mhm.
families are not really, like, we haven't really learned historically how to resolve conflict,
Yeah.
how to
Oof.
resolve conflict within
Oof.
ourselves, how to deal with our emotions. So we don't know
Mm,
how to have emotions. They've always been stuffed down, because back in the day, if we had emotions, they would get us killed you know so
okay.
that's the stuff that we've learned generationally. So now we have all of these kids with these strong emotions. They don't have an outlet for it, and they don't know how to express it. So it goes out, and it's not necessarily the healthiest way to express it. So
right.
black boys are being either underdiagnosed, undiagnosed, incorrectly diagnosed, and they're not able to get the resources that they need in order to tackle ADHD. And it's so sad. It's so sad. And let me point this out too. Black girls are up there too, because a lot of times the ADHD presents differently in black girls and girls period. Because we normally have the inattentive types, so we're kind of spacey, we're kind of forgetful, you know. We're not the person who's making the most noise in the class. We're not the person who's trying to get the most attention. We're not the person who's running around in a circle, because let's call it a buck. That's the face of ADHD, right?
Mhm.
But that's not what it is for us. So I always just thought that something was wrong with me. I always thought that something. I was like, man, people used to call me a black blonde in high school, and I was like, yeah, I'm just no, I'm not ditzy. I'm actually really smart. And once I removed all of those masks and I started unmasking all of the stuff that I had learned to try to fit in school and when I was at home, everything finally started to come to the surface, and I could be a more authentic self. And having ADHD, it requires an authentic self, a very authentic self, like a rawness to you. So that way you can explain who you are to other people and you can deal with your issues. Just putting that out there.
So we're talking. So in a way, we're also talking about parents that don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with ADHD kids.
Let's call it a buck, man. I mean, when have we really learned
Yeah,
emotional intelligence or
yeah,
vibrating not just to survive and being stuck in survival mode, because we've been in survival mode for generations,
yeah.
right? So let's go and talk about actually thriving, Maslow's hierarchy, and actually starting to live, starting to achieve consciousness, going to a different level. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yeah, it's yeah, a lot of parents who have kids who have ADHD, they don't even know that they have ADHD. So how can they deal with something that they don't even know themselves about or they want to deny?
Mm. Oh
Ooh,
wow.
wait,
Oh.
wait, 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 wait. All right, so do we still want to do the what was it? The little finger
Put a
game?
Yeah.
finger down, girl. Listen, hold on. Let me get my
That,
list because I
we
had to
know
write
that.
stuff down. Okay. All right.
Are we ready? All right, here we go. Here we go. So I'm gonna do the inattention cluster. Right now, you got to have 6 or more symptoms to qualify. All right, everybody has to also be over age 16. All right, so here we go. Here we go. Often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or with other activities. All right. I'm trying to see those hands. Keep them together. All right. Often has trouble holding attention on tasks or play activities. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly.
I
That's
be
a
in my
thing,
own
by the
little
way.
world.
That's a
I be in
thing,
my
I
by
am.
the
own
way.
little world.
Yeah.
All right.
What you
That's
say?
I be in my own little world.
yes, sir.
Right.
That's a thing.
Often
I be like, yeah, okay.
often does not follow through, on instructions and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, or duties in the workplace.
Well, no, when I'm hyper,
All right, all right. Has trouble organizing tasks and activities. Organizing tasks and activities. Organizing.
organizing,
Mhm. Often avoids, dislikes, or is reluctant to do tasks that require mental effort over long periods of time, such as schoolwork or homework. Long periods of time. Okay.
ain't doing all that.
Mental endurance. Often loses things necessary for tasks and activities. So we're talking about school materials, pencils, books, paperwork, eyeglasses, mobile phones.
Pens.
Is often easily distracted. Is often forgetful in daily activities. All right, all right, all right, all right. So that is for inattention. All right, that is just for inattention.
Woo, I was about to get bored. I'm glad you stopped. I was getting ready to get bored. Like, okay, this is enough. Moving
Listen,
on.
listen.
Oh, the irony.
I
All
have
right.
TikTok. I call myself inattentive Ivy because baby, that's what I am. I know, and it's like I know that's me. I was like, you might as well just go ahead and put both of these hands down.
Yeah.
All right, so here
Yeah.
we go. We're going to do the hyperactivity component. The same criteria applies. You got to have 6 or more of these symptoms, and you have to be over 16, right?
I'm only gonna put one hand up.
All right. Often fidgets with or taps hands or feet, squirms in seat. All right. Often leaves seat in situations when remaining in the seat is expected. So just getting up and go when you're supposed to be seated. All right. Often runs about or climbs in situations where it's not appropriate.
No.
For adults, it's probably going to be restlessness, though. It's going to be a lot of restlessness. Okay. Often unable to play or take part in leisure activities quietly. All right. Is often on the go, acting as if driven by a motor. Gotta go, 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 go. All right. Often talks excessively. Often blurts out an answer before the question has even been completed. All right. Often has trouble waiting their turn. Last one. Often interrupts or intrudes on others, butts into conversations, into games. You wasn't invited to the party, but you just showed up. All right, so that's hyperactivity.
Can you be a combination of both hyper
You
and
can.
Yes,
okay?
Yes,
yes.
that's the thing. You can be you can be they call it combined hyperactive and inattentive. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you
Mm,
saw it, but she just popped in here and I'm like, "Meow." I'm like, oh, yeah.
mm.
But she wants to be a part of everybody's conversation. So yeah, that's the thing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Wow.
This comment is
Mm,
from Love Shun, by the way.
mm. Ooh, okay. So, you know what? With that second sentence right there, Ivy, you spoke to something on Friday that I kind of caught. You said you were thinking about or pursuing your for a degree in art therapy.
Mhm.
All right. So, why art therapy?
First of all, art therapy saved my life, right? I'll tell anybody. I also, because of the fact that I have ADHD and we don't handle stress and trauma very well, I didn't know this until I went on my mental health journey. But but when I took art therapy, because of the fact that it was so calming and like when we would do what they call process art therapy, like it told me so many things about my life. I was like, what? Like they would tell you, okay, so you want to make this picture, and they would explain some type of thing about therapy. They would say, when we're recovering from things or when we have trauma, I want you to put this picture down. I want you to make this picture or do this clay figure or something, and
Hmm.
literally it would come off the dome. And when you're dealing with somebody who's ADHD, a lot of times we're creative because we don't have that logical side doesn't necessarily, it filters in, but it's like but we choose the creative over the logical because it's more fun to us. And being able to get out all of those thoughts and all of those things that I had been harboring and feeling, and being able to put it in colors and in shapes and things of that, man, that was so it was so freeing. Like we didn't, like, if you unless you study color therapy, you don't know that certain colors have a certain meaning, and when you use them, it's sensing something, certain brushstrokes that you make.
Mhm.
So yeah, I live by art therapy and I love it.
What's
And
up?
I processing it saved my life. It really did. It helped me process so many hard emotions that I didn't even know were there, stuff that was subconscious.
Oh, so
Hmm.
art therapy is sort of like a form of psychotherapy then.
It is, yeah. Yeah. I
Oh.
mean, when you're processing after you've written, you have to have somebody who's a licensed psychologist, but they also know the artistic part of it. So they know what you're trying to express. So, man, the art therapist that we had, she was amazing. And she would read my life like within an inch of my life. Like she would, I mean, and I was just like, why are you coming for me like this? But it gave me so many insights, and I'd never experienced anything like that before, especially something that came, like, I didn't have to find the verbiage to try to explain myself. I could literally just, it was within me, and I was able to put it out there and express it. It was great. Yeah.
And how did you come across that therapy? Because I mean, there's a lot of therapies. I think there's over 100. Yeah, there's over 100. So
There
how did you
is.
know this one was the fit? What, like, did you have a choice, or was it just like you're gonna take this art therapy?
So I'm going to be completely transparent and honest because I don't have an issue with sharing it. I was in a very dark place at the end of 2020, very, very dark. Like I didn't want to be on the earth anymore, dark. And I went to an inpatient program. And when I went to the inpatient program, that's where they did like we did equine therapy and we did art therapy and we did some other different modalities and things. And I used to like I would just go into the art room and just create because that's what healed me. So I came across art therapy there, but there's also different. There's people who do art therapy for lots of different subgroups. You know, like I want to be an art therapy for veterans because I feel that like lots of veterans that suffer from PTSD and things that they can't explain from the wars. You know, like they thrive from art therapy because it really like it digs into your subconscious, the stuff that you don't have words for. So that's the reason why I think that art therapy is wonderful. Yeah, and that's where I went to. I went to art therapy there.
Mm, okay. I've seen that with
Relationships.
veteran. I'm sorry. They did a special on a veteran. He just started creating things that made him feel much better about what was going on with him. He died shortly after that, but he said, "I wanted to leave something behind, um, positive versus
Yeah,
what he had already been through, and he suffered from PTSD." So
yeah,
yeah, that's deep.
yeah,
Go ahead, honey.
yeah.
Relationships. How has ADHD affected? Let's start with work. Let's start with let's build our way up. Let's start with work
Woo!
and friendships. Work, friendships, and family. Let's start there
Yes.
first.
So, oh my gosh. If you go to my page is open. My Facebook page is open. And a lot of times I know people be on there like, is she talking about, man, she can't be talking about ADHD again. Yes, I am. I'm going to talk about it every day. Okay.
Okay.
The reason being is because my relationships can be interesting
Mm,
based off of my ADHD symptoms. So we do this thing called object permanence, right?
Mhm.
What object permanence is like the reason why we're so cluttered. We like to keep everything out in the open because if something is hidden, we forget it's there. So it's like, and that's what's meant by object permanence. And unfortunately, it sometimes also happens with people, which is really bad. You know, and it's not like we don't love you and we don't think about you every day. It's like we have flashes in our brain because remember that's how everything like kind of rolls. You have ADHD.
Mhm.
I tell people it's like I have 17 hamsters. They're all on a wheel. They're playing TV. Somebody's got a radio. We got one on a scooter. He's like rolling by like deuces. So there's a lot of stuff going on in there at all times, right? So with all of that stuff, we always get flashes of our friendships and our relationships and the people we love. However, because we can't initiate tasks and executive functions, it's hard for us to keep up with you. And that
Mm,
can be troubling in relationships and friendships. You know, I think I told this story, and I don't know if she's watching or not. I asked her to watch, but I had a friend. I had a friend who I made up here in Washington a couple years ago, and I had just met her. I thought she was awesome, right? But she used to text me, and I wouldn't immediately text back. And then when I didn't immediately text back, I would forget to text back.
mm,
And I feel like boo boo for not texting back. And then because of the fact that I felt like that, I felt guilt and I felt shame. And I was like, I'm just going to let this slide. So until one day she was
mm,
like, yeah, why do you not call me back? I don't understand. We've had, why don't you not text me back? And I had to explain. I was like, listen, I was like, let me explain something. I have ADHD. It's not my proudest trait, but I am really bad at keeping in touch and with forward communication. I was like, it doesn't mean that you're not on my mind and I don't love you, like for real, for real. I was like, but the problem is I have object permanence, and this is what happens. And I still love you, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to try better because I know now that you brought it to me that this is an issue for you. So yeah, that's how it can also cause problems in romantic relationships the same way. We'll ghost somebody when we didn't even know it. We didn't even want to ghost you, and you'll just be gone, and you'll be like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. I was eating an avocado, and the next thing you know, I just forgot to call you.
Dang.
Yeah.
It's serious. It's oh gosh, it's
Wow.
irritating. But that's what happens. That's what can happen.
The
I
ghosting.
had the ghosting. I did that.
Unintentional ghosting. That's the
The
Oh,
term.
conversation was
unintentional
it
ghosting.
was
Okay.
unintentional, but then after a while, you just be like, "All right, fuck it."
Because you feel so bad.
Conversation was great. Um, I was really shocked. At the conversation was wonderful. It looked like it could have been promising. Like this could be, and the next day it's like, "Ugh,
Out of sight, out of mind.
that's it." Like maybe it was just a good conversation for that day with someone of the opposite sex, but the next day it was like,
Wow. So you can imagine that there's so many Americans out here that are undiagnosed and do that, right? So we're talking about unintentional, right?
right.
Unintentional
Unintentional.
ghosting.
Oh, see.
Oh my God. So I was watching this show. I don't know if I'm allowed to. Am I allowed to mention show? I don't know. Okay,
Go
so I was watching
ahead.
this show on Netflix. I love watching. What is it? It's that show where they have people they meet in Netflix and they speak in the pods and then they fall in love and then what's that thing called? I forgot what the name of the show
Love
is.
at first sight or something like blind love. Love is blind or something like
Love is
that.
Blind. That's
Something like
I
that. Yeah.
love it. I love watching that show. And
My
there was
queen
this
watched that
kid
all
that
the
was on
time.
there. Y'all listen, I love it for real. And there was this kid on there. I think it was last season. Um, and like I saw him like do like he was with this girl and they were supposed to get married or whatever. And everything that I saw him do, it was quirky and it was just like sometimes it was irritating and it's annoying. But I knew that he had ADHD. Like I saw it, right? But she was like, "Oh my gosh, this stuff is intentional. You're trying to break me down." And he's like, "No, I'm really not. I'm just like he wanted novelty and he wanted fun, and sometimes if you got somebody who's not necessarily on that level, you can look like you're being rude. So those are some other issues that come up with ADHD relationships. Like you can be misunderstood unless you're very sure of self and you know yourself and you know what your symptoms are and you're able to communicate that. Yeah, relationships can be a serious problem. We started to talk about it like this weekend, but like yeah, people with ADHD, I'm gonna be completely transparent and honest. I always used to ask myself, why did I have difficult relationships? And I thought it was just because I had like a big stamp on my forehead. It just was like, oh, she's the one. Yeah, you can get over her. Empath. Like I thought all of that stuff was true. No, actually, what I found out is that it's ADHD. 80 girls with ADHD, especially the inattentive type, we attract narcissists because we fall in love hard because we are searching for the dopamine. We are in that person, they automatically present dopamine. Quit drinking that water. They, they automatically produce dopamine for you and they give you that feeling of novelty that you have been chasing. And then all of it starts to settle down and fall off. And you're like, uh-oh, the match just came off. What just happened? No, this is not good. This is not healthy. You know what I'm saying? So I figured that out and I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, I don't have sucker written on my forehead. I was like, it's just the ADHD. And once I finally found out about myself, I'm like, now things can get a little bit easier. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh, is it a liability, an asset, or both?
Mm.
It's
Both.
both.
It's both.
It's
Yeah.
both. I mean, the human experience in general can be a liability or an asset, depending on what your shadow.
Ooh,
I mean,
yeah.
just saying. This it
Okay.
depends on are you allowing your present self or your shadow self to take over? Are you deciding to live? Are you deciding to live, or are you just deciding to exist and survive? You know. So the
Mm.
thing is that 2 years ago, I made a decision that I'm going to live. I'm not just gonna survive. And I decided to get in touch with my shadow self, understand my shadow self, and actually embrace my shadow self so my present self could be in control instead of my shadow self. So ADHD is a part of that shadow. And it can be both a liability and an asset, but either way, I'm human and it's a part of the human experience.
How long has the term ADHD,
ADHD.
how long has that been around?
I want to say since the 70s, but let me look up something.
Somewhere around
Since
the 80s.
1987,
Has it
Yeah.
actually.
been 87?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was so this was DSM-4. It went from 3 to 4. So yeah, that was somewhere around the 80s. So it
Okay.
was ADD in the DSM-3, and then it became ADHD in DSM-4. So yeah.
And
In
the
1987,
DSM
yes.
3 and 4 are those manuals or books or
Yeah,
something?
so they're the DSM is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have different versions. So right now we're in the 5th edition.
Yep.
It's kind of like, yeah, they call it the therapist Bible, the psychologist Bible. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you go. I mean, it's the same as like when a mechanic has the manual for your vehicle, that they have the manufacturer's manual for the vehicle. So, all right, hey, it helps you to troubleshoot, and then it gives you the solutions for what you troubleshoot. So they use
Yep.
the manual to diagnose and say, okay, here's some recommendations, and then there's research in there. So yeah.
Yeah, and then before that, with in the DSM-3 and 4, I do know this much. At first, they just called it just ADD, attention deficit disorder. Then they moved on to call it ADHD in 4, and then they separate. So they separated ADD and ADHD. And basically, what that meant,
Um,
what they do now is they just combine everything. Everything is ADHD, right? Whether you have hyperactivity or not, but they'll just say you have ADHD combined, ADHD inattentive, or ADHD hyperactive,
mm.
with the inability to emotionally regulate it, right? So those are like the three. So everything is ADHD now in the DSM-5.
Right. And DSM 5 is composed of different psychologists.
I hope so.
Their ideas and yeah. Okay.
I want to say
Right.
that they probably got it from people writing journalists, like journalist
Yeah.
researchers and stuff.
So a lot of all right, some of it is very political. I will say that. But a lot of yeah, it is very political. But a lot of their decisions are also influenced by research. So I say it's political in the sense of like, all right, just making that one modification. All right, we're gonna call it this. Like, okay, PTSD was once considered a anxiety disorder, and some therapists and psychologists will say it still is, but then they gave it a different classification in the DSM-5. So it's like it's little tweaks like that, figuring out how to classify it because prevalence changes, research updates.
Yeah. I just noticed, over the past, I want to say, I've noticed over the past 3 years, there's just been an increased awareness for me when it comes to, like, I'm hearing people talk about mental health more than I ever have realized. And
Mhm.
so my thought, I shared with you, John, last week. I'm kind of on the fence with mental health, and the therapist and all the everything that comes along with it. But
Understood.
I think it's very political, just from the little that I see, and then from another perspective, I don't ever want to get caught up in um, a system and have to be dependent upon the system and what they supply or provide, for me to deal with whatever I'm dealing with. I don't ever want to get, addicted to that in no shape or form or fashion, or feel obligated to that for my mental survival, emotional survival, none of that, because according to the power that worketh in me, prior to their diagnosis, prior to their, them laying out, the medication for before all of that. I mean, outside of all of that, and I'm not against it for anyone, and I'm not opposed to it, but those are some of the thoughts that I have surrounding it.
So a little bit of skepticism.
Oh, definitely.
Health. Okay. Okay.
Skepticism
Some
is healthy.
skepticism. Yeah. Healthy
Skepticism. I don't know
skepticism.
the definition. What's the definition of that, John? I don't.
Doubt. Doubt. Just some doubt. Yeah.
Doubt in
in the system.
Well, of course, they're mere men.
Mhm.
We're in Western civilization and the world, so of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of people that relate to
Mhm.
that way of thinking. As she mentioned before, Miss Ivy did in the beginning when you said that people just don't want to be labeled and have that stigma attached to
Of
them
course.
and or their children. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also,
Stigmatized.
a seemingly rational fear because we are in an oppressive system. And so, there's oppression in the hospitals. And so why wouldn't it be in the mental health field? Especially when, you hear, well, we're not going to get too far off into that, but
Listen.
Suppression and then come up as well.
right. Right.
Hmm.
So, but there is a balance here. There is a balance, because it's like the total system isn't derogatory, and that's why you were, and I can respect that you're not, imposing, right? But there is some help there. So it's like, all right, we could be on the outside and not participate, not tap in, right? But then that doesn't necessarily alleviate the problems. What I do appreciate about the system now is there are what's called CAMs. There's complementary alternative medicines, right? So art therapy is not a conventional treatment for any of the mental illnesses that are out there. And yet here it is, you got research that's saying, hey, it works, but there's limitations to that in terms of its applications, in terms of the demographics that it applies to. So art therapy is not going to work for everybody.
Hmm.
Yoga is even considered a form of treatment, right? And it could help, maybe it doesn't. Um, and then I know
There's
that
some.
there's other ones. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. See, that's me jumping in. Sorry, my bad. I was going to say there's so many different modalities that are out there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so it's all about like trying to find what works for you. In fact, I know before I left treatment, the it's with the company of the place I went to, they were talking about doing an institute for generational trauma. And I was like, "Excuse me?" They were like, we have inpatient treatment and extensive outpatient treatment for generational trauma. Do you know how much that will change the game? It's all
Wow.
about it's all about it's all about whatever modality is comfortable for you.
Yes.
Sometimes reading is therapy for you. You
Education.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
just reading and getting the education about whatever, So I mean, I just think that whatever your meditation is, whatever your therapy
Mm,
is, just find something that calms you and that comforts you. And for some people who've been living with ADHD and they haven't been diagnosed, you've been living with your own tools for years. And if you're comfortable with it, baby, we're comfortable with it.
yeah.
I mean, I say if you like it, I love it. That's where I leave it. Yeah. So,
Well, shoot, since we're on that,
oh, I'm sorry. What are the pre? Uh, oh, hello. What are we doing? Because
oh wait,
I
where is
I
it?
just posted that. I don't know.
Oh,
oh,
Okay,
somebody
just
said,
the experience you've had with medication in terms of how effective it's been for you. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
yeah. I do not mind telling anybody I'm medicated. My son is medicated. I haven't medicated my daughter yet. She's only 9, and I kind of just want to wait for her to be in the double digits before we do start talking about actual pharmaceutical helps. So I don't mind telling anybody who know. As you can see, I'm an open book, right? Yeah, that's another thing with us. If we have ADHD, we are TMI like all day, right? But I have no secrets, so I'm just like whatever. So I take something called clonidine. Clonidine is it's actually a heart medication, but it helps to regulate rejection sensitive dysphoria. It also helps to regulate your sleep because we don't sleep very well if you have ADHD.
Mm,
That helps. I also take Adderall, but I've tried every one of them almost. Like all of the ADHD meds, and what works for me is Adderall because I'm taking it now. Also, I also take supplements because one of the things that with the loss of executive function is also a loss of dopamine, like having dopamine to sustain you to get your mind on track. And dopamine production actually starts in the body. It starts in the stomach. So I take probiotics for gut regulation. I take L-tyrosine because L-tyrosine, as Brother Diamond said, like this last weekend, it's an amino acid and it helps protein to break down into those amino acids in your body, and you need protein in order to create dopamine. So I take that. I take zinc. I take magnesium. Magnesium is great. Is awesome if you have heart problems or if you have like mental dysregulations. And all of this keeps me happy. It keeps me focused. It keeps me able to not medicate every day. I'm medicated today. Yes, I am. So I can stay on task and not interrupt everybody. but I like it was, in fact, I think I told you guys when I first took the medication for ADHD, I was mad. I was angry because I was like, you mean to tell me this is how neurotypicals have been my whole entire life? They have just been operating on this level and I haven't been able to do this. I was like, this makes me angry because I was like, think about how productive I could have been at
Oof.
18 and now I'm 36, right? So so yeah, it was like somebody took the blinders off and everything, like possibilities opened up. And I've been on medications, on medications, off medications. So I try, like, different things, and sometimes if I'm starting to get used to something, I'll go back to my doctor and I'm like, hey, let's try X, Y, and Z. But listen, I mean, it's essential. If nothing else, I definitely take my probiotics and my supplements per day. And then I take Adderall when I need to be focused, and I take clonidine every night because it helps me deal with all the other things that I feel. Like the maladaptiveness and the overstimulation and like my masking and stimming. Like it helps to control all of that stuff when I take it. So yeah, there we go.
Just
Yeah.
But
calming down
these
enough to
terms,
get some sleep. I'm sorry.
You said what?
yeah.
Just calming down enough to get some sleep. Just
Call me.
shutting
Not
it off.
only not
Shutting it
only do
off.
I get sleep. Oh, here's another thing. If you have ADHD, do not take melatonin. Melatonin, what it does is it does the opposite. Yeah, it does the opposite of what our brains actually need. It'll put us to sleep, but then it takes away. I want to say the help me out, Father Diamond, if I get this wrong. The noepinephrine,
Oh,
No,
neuro.
epinephrine.
yeah,
Yeah.
norepinephrine.
Yes, it takes that away. So then it's like we'll go to sleep, but we wake up the next day and we are functioning on no cylinders, like none. So that's the reason why I take the clonidine. And if I want to get to sleep, I take magnesium, and that's what puts me to sleep, and that's what helps me to regulate. And so do my kid. She does the same thing. She takes magnesium. Yep. Oh, and zinc, and I also take zinc because zinc helps too. Yeah.
So you take those before bed, the zinc and
Uh
the
huh.
mag.
Every
Okay.
day, and a probiotic.
And
I
Yeah.
used to take melatonin a lot. And I would
Mm-hmm.
notice the next day I would just be groggy, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Yeah.
like a fog,
Yep, because
you know.
it takes all of that. No, you know what? I'm not even going to explain the medical stuff because my brain is like, but no. Um, but basically, it takes stuff away, and you're gonna be groggy if you take
Yeah,
a whole bunch
you
of
really you
melatonin.
just be like,
And
okay,
then also there's a lack of a chemical that turns, melatonin is a precursor to serotonin. Serotonin
mhm.
is the hormone that wakes us up. So that's why sun exposure, light, things like that turns into produces serotonin, wakes us up, gets us into this wakefulness state. And
Hmm.
but I'm finding too that as she was pointing out that that there's a lack of that. And so when you got an excess of melatonin, you don't have enough of the molecule or the hormone that actually turns it into serotonin. So it can make you groggy because you got now an excess amount of melatonin. So that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Mm. Oh
Now
wow.
I do have a question. I noticed, like, even in my research on this, not just ADHD, but also the symptoms, and there seems to be an influx of symptoms on this side of World War II, whereas post World War II, these type of symptoms were not as prevalent. And we're talking about percentages of, in this country and also in other countries. They were not as prevalent. So the numbers have actually gone up. Right now, we at about 1 in 22 Americans have been diagnosed with ADHD. And whereas before then, it was it was some astronomical number like 1 in 60 something or 1 in 70 something, that had those kind of symptoms. So would you and there's a lot of things on this side of World War II that we like our food chain, our food supply started to
Hmm.
degrade the quality of our food. Do you feel like that has anything to do with the influx of the symptoms that we
Oh yeah.
experience now? Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, I mean, somebody said on the chat, they said, that makes sense because our gut is our second brain, right?
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
pretty much about it. When I was so in December, I decided to start working with a trainer who her approach to everything was holistic, and she would say, "Eat God's food." Right? She was like, if Adam and Eve does not recommend it or did not does can't recognize it, then it doesn't need to be on your plate. That helped my mood and my ADHD so much, like so much. So I focus on non-processed foods, on low carb options, on things that are the least stepped on, like so stepped on. Excuse me, sorry. But the things that so like lean proteins, I'll have chicken, a vegetable, and then like if I want a starch, I'll use like a heart of palm uh exception, you know what I'm saying, or something of that sort. And like eating just whole foods changed the game, man. That plus a
Hmm.
probiotic. Yeah, if you want to do a holistic approach to ADHD, recommend looking up supplements, changing your diet to just whole raw foods, doing that for like what they say 30 days. It takes the 30 days to make a habit. Do that for 30 days and see how it feels. See how it feels in your kids' life. When I took Debbie, I'm sorry, my daughter, she loves chicken nuggets, right? So instead, I would just like cut up pieces of grilled chicken, right? And we would have air fried chicken nuggets, right? And I started to notice a change. It's a change when they somebody said fermented foods too for the gut. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like
like
sauerkraut. Yeah, very
yeah,
very good.
yeah,
Hmm.
very good. That's why I say I swear by magnesium, zinc, a probiotic, some L-tyrosine, something to get those to regulate your gut because that stuff is major.
Okay. That's what's up.
Yay!
What fermented fruit? Yeah. Oh
Oh,
God. That
what are
is
some of
that
the
that's
biggest I'm sorry, go ahead. The biggest misconceptions that people have about ADHD.
Well, actually, no, no, no. Let's go to. Oh, no, never mind, never mind. Go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead, go
You
ahead.
sure? Okay,
Yeah.
because I was about to
go
say
ahead. Go
biggest
ahead.
misconceptions that people have it. Let's call it a buck. All right. When you think about ADHD, you think about that young white boy who is in a
Yes.
classroom, who can't sit down, who's running around, or either the little girl who's like, "Oh my
Shaking
God,
the
squirrel."
world.
Yeah, no, it's none of that. Okay. It's none of that. It reaches across all kinds of stuff, right? But the thing is that we're just regular people. I asked my son that question. Ask my son, the one who's inattentive like me, and he was like, I was like, what do you want people to know about you? And he was like, tell people we are regular folks. And I'm like, okay, why wouldn't we be regular? And he's like, well, people think that we're completely like like we don't take anything serious, like we don't have any goals, ambitions, or dreams. We have all of that. Our thing is that we're not as actionable because we have a lack of executive function. But I mean, we're regular people. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right, all right. Let's see. What advice would you give to someone who has been recently diagnosed?
Don't do like me when I first got diagnosed. Literally, they gave me a diagnosis, they threw me some medicine, and it was like, here you go. I didn't start to dive into everything until I started going on my mental health journey, right? That
Okay.
so learn about what ADHD is, learn some tools That's the biggest thing. I have tools for all of my symptoms. Like in fact, I wrote them down because I forget, right? Like the time blindness tool, like when I told people to lie to me, I put stuff in my phone. Like if I make an appointment with the doctor, I put my appointments in there a half an hour early. So because I forget and I'll trick myself into actually being on time. Like for like dyscalculia, I don't know if you know what that is. Like I hate odd numbers, right? Hate odd
Mm.
numbers. Like it physically like ails me. Seriously. So even if it's something that says like 849 in my mind, I'll make sure that I know to round it up because otherwise like it like I feel it somatically. You know what I'm saying? Like when I see like an odd number, it literally it's making me like ache when I think about it. Object permanence, I leave my stuff out. You know what I'm saying? So that way I won't forget that it's there. And if I put stuff in drawers, I label, I put a sticky on the drawer to say what's in there. That's when I'm hyper focused. Like when I'm really good, I'm hyper focused like that. And I put like a sign on there to say like this is what I have in here and this is what I have in there, so I don't forget and I don't buy it again. You know, I now have a financial planner because we go for the dopamine and sometimes, you know, like I'm not saying I've always been pretty responsible, but you know, sometimes it's like I feel like I could be better. So I have a financial planner. Like I know that I don't have some things intrinsically inside of myself, so I call other people to help. And that's one of the biggest things that you need to do if you have ADHD. Don't be afraid to call for help. A lot of times we want to think that we can do things on our own. And I'm like, if history has shown that this is an area of problem, get some help for it. You know what I'm saying? Ask somebody else, and
Mhm.
don't be ashamed of it because I mean they got their shadow stuff that they got to work through too. So we're a community. Let's be a community together. Help me.
Mm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I have. Oh, do you have? I talked about some of the strategies just there. Um, to help mitigate or manage therapy recommendations. You have to find okay, so first of all, resource recommendations. There are so many resources that are out there, but three good ones just off the break. Is first there is ADD.org, or it's called ADA. That's where if you've just been diagnosed, it's ADD.org, ADA, and they give that's where you can find ADHD coaching. You can find an online informal ADHD test. You can find
Ooh.
resources. You can find, did I already say coaching? I probably already said coaching. You can
Mm.
find therapists. You can find community there. You can find like they have symposiums for ADHD. They have like groups for people
Uh,
of color. You know, like that's a good one. There's
uh,
also the website called Chad, or I spoke about this a little bit on Friday. It's called Children and Adults with ADD. So chad.com, they're a good one too. And then the last one that I recommend is Attitude Magazine. Attitude Magazine is life. There's all kinds of articles and stuff in there from people who have probably been in different stages of ADHD. Like you can look up love, relationships, tips for work, different things of that sort. So attitude, and it's spelled ADD attitude, and it's a wonderful resource. Some therapy recommendations. You got to find what modality is good for you. I recommend finding an ADD coach, an ADHD coach, and some strategies. Um, it depends on what your poison is or what your shadow source is, depending on what it is that you have a problem with ADHD. Mine's I already explained some of. Oh, my son, he has trichotillomania, where I don't know if like if you so one of the way that we stem, and I don't, does anybody know what stemming is?
No.
Okay. I think they speak about stemming when they talk about people with autism, but stemming is basically a way for you to regulate your body, right?
self
So you
soothe.
self-soothe, yeah. So
Okay.
sometimes it can be, you know, humming. Some people sing. I like to sing out loud. Listen, I'm medicated, so I'm not doing it on the show, right? But but some people they like to, like I said, my daughter, she likes to spin. She likes to spin around. That's how she regulates herself. But stemming is something that you do when your emotions are high and you don't necessarily know how to the other ways to self-regulate, right? Like picking stuff. So my son, he picks out pieces of hair. So they have shampoo that keeps his hands like it has like a gritty feeling to his hair, so that way he won't pull his hair out. There's all kinds of different. If you look it up, I promise you, once you know what the
Dang.
symptoms are, you look it up, you go to Sir Google, you will find an answer for it because I
Oof.
have found answers for everything.
Wow.
Everything. Yeah.
Sir Google.
I'm sorry.
I can't let that go, man. Hold on. Sir Google.
Yeah, we make up lots of words too.
You do not get a distinction. Okay.
I make up words. I mean, that's a part of my charm, I guess.
Sir Google.
Sir Google. But
Google.
yeah, you look them up. Seriously, man. You look up.
We're gonna be using that, Sir Google. Did you check Sir Google? Go look on
You gotta make a face with it though. You gotta make a face with it.
Sir Google. Sir Google. Check Sir Google. They're gonna be like, what the fuck is that?
Oh
Oh my god. I love it.
yeah. There you go.
Great. This has been
Yeah.
great. This has been great.
Done.
So I'm just walking around undiagnosed.
Well, I like that the first resource that you shared, the add.org, where you can
just trying to look that
do
up.
what was it, the self-assessment, the
You can do the
informal
self-assessment. That's like the first place that you want to go even if you're undiagnosed. Like that's the first place that you want to go if you have a suspicion, not suspicion, a suspicion that you have ADHD, or if you're just recently diagnosed. That's some place to go. There's lots of Facebook groups. Like I'm part of I think 3 to 4 Facebook groups of people who have ADHD. One of my favorites is Moms with ADHD because everybody takes it light, and we talk about stuff because parenting gets real when you have ADHD because you're gonna have some ADHD kids. So it's like there's all kinds of resources. I love community. It's all kinds of stuff that you can figure out.
Is there financial resources for people with ADHD, like a check?
Yes, if your ADHD is documented and it is, she's like, give me the money
tomorrow.
Is it gonna be enough to cover my current expenses?
It might be a supplement
right now.
It might be a supplement, but no, seriously, you can qualify for SSI or SSDI if your symptoms of ADHD are severe enough and it's documented. The reason why a diagnosis is important, if it's severe enough that it keeps you from performing at your job. Yes, it is.
Yes.
And let's also talk about how ADHD is covered under the ADA, the Americans Disability Act. So that means that anything that's going on at the job, you let them know that you have ADHD and they still want to come up with some.
They got to accommodate.
Right? They have to accommodate you. Accommodations at work. I wish somebody would have told me that. Like dead serious. I wish somebody would have told me because that's it. They can't terminate because you have accommodations, but you have to get real with yourself. Get a diagnosis, and then let people. You have to communicate. That's like one of the biggest things. So yes, yeah.
I love it. I was just doing my nails while you were talking. Look, I looked down and seen some dirt. And I was like,
I'm about to give you a shot of L-tyrosine right now.
I have this thing that I put lotion on right at the beginning of the show. Did y'all see me putting on my lotion? That was not lotion. That was some hair treatment. It looked like it was.
Do you know how many times me and my kids put orange juice in our cereal?
So sticky.
Girl, there's so many times when we put orange juice in cereal. I mean, like dead serious.
I'm sitting there. It looks like lotion.
It does. I bet you smell great.
I was putting it on. I was like, this is really thick. Wait a minute. I started reading the label. I text John. I was like, oh God, take over. I had to go wash my arms off. It left it soft.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, what the hell? I'm sorry. I have my little
King Newborn has been quiet tonight.
He has been very quiet.
Oh my God.
I'm shocked.
Everything like what, me?
He heard that.
What the world?
I am shocked. He heard that.
Oh, come on now.
He heard that though.
It's like, who's quiet? Me?
Yeah, you. You're quiet.
God love Pat.
Well, with that being said, I try to be respectful of everyone's time. I just want to say thank you for taking out the time to come on the show and to be an open book. and to talk about ADHD. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this because I got lost. I
There's
got
a
lost
name for
in some
that.
sections. I got
There's
lost in some
there's
sections.
a name for that. It's called directional dyslexia.
Yeah, I'm telling you, baby. But yeah, but I like to rewatch all of the shows. But I really do appreciate you coming on, um,
Absolutely. Thank you
and
for
being an
inviting me.
advocate for. Why wouldn't we?
Yes, you are amazing. Your energy is awesome. I said that
Oh,
before.
thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
yeah. It was so knowledgeable. A lot of things that you shared with us.
very,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
very well spoken. By the way,
Thank you very much. Look, I've got my mask on today. Have you heard about masking and unmasking when you have ADHD? We mask to fit in and we unmask to
Mm.
be ourselves.
Right.
So I'm they call it like code switching. I'm code switching my ADHD right now.
now last year when I was going through everything that I was going through, I literally knew how to put it on, and as soon as this show was over, this wig got snatched off.
Mm.
I swear to
I
God,
know
like
that's
I lost edges behind it too. Yeah,
Not the edges. Not the
really
edges.
snatched. Baby, one day I couldn't get it out. I was like, because the show was over, we had a great show, everything was good, and but still, I was going through something mentally. I snatched this, lost all my little edges. They finally grew back, but still, that masking. When I get to work, they got a good 6 to 8 hours before I'm ready to go.
Yes, sir. You got to pull
Like
the
I
mask off.
can 6 hours, and if the day is hitting me back to back, less than that.
Yeah.
Like this is yeah. So I
Yeah.
definitely get it. Just having that when I walk in, I'm very happy. Hello, how you doing? And then throughout the day, if the day is getting the best of me, I start to wander
Hmm.
in everybody's office. I go, I sit, I talk, I chit chat. I
You're
act like
getting
I ain't got no
you're
work.
getting restless. Yeah, that's restless. That's a symptom. Come join the
I
dark.
just go
Come
sit
join.
and talk and listen. And then when I get bored with them, I walk into somebody else's office, walk down the hall, go to my car, and make a couple phone calls. I hope no one's from my job watching.
They are all watching right now, just since you said that.
you know they.
Like, so I walk in the office, whatever. Like, are you're restless? Oh yeah, let me. Like I do.
Hmm.
I do. I have to walk off that hall and go have a moment.
Hmm.
Come up with a new game plan because in the morning I have a game plan, but throughout the day that game plan gets changed and it throws me off and it's hard to get back on track. So I have to go wander, talk, be by myself, and then create a new game plan as I'm doing all of this and then go back to the floor and just hit it. So yeah, I do. Oh God.
You're regulating yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at that. There's a coping skill. There's a
Mm.
tool.
It's called I'm a wanderer. I
Yeah.
wander. They see me wandering, I'll just leave her be.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that. I literally have a tattoo that I got when I first got diagnosed. All
Hmm.
who wander are not lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's
Mm.
me. I was the wanderer too. So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on over. Come on over. Go to ADD.org. Go take that self test, girl.
But I want all natural medication. Just give me something
Yeah.
natural.
All the magazine.
I'm gonna put some
Yes.
magnesium and
The
some zinc.
Magda and
Like,
the L-Zine. It'll
yes,
get
I
you.
Yeah,
It'll get you straight.
I need that. I
Yeah.
need that.
It'll get
But
you straight.
will I start to get to work on time?
No,
that's
that'll
what
never
I
happen.
wanted to know. That'll never happen. Okay.
That won't happen off the medication. I'm sorry.
Because I
Yeah.
promise you, I get up. I don't be knowing I be up for like 2 hours and still be late to work.
Hmm. That's a modality thing. That's just like you have to come up with a thing for that. You know what I'm saying? How to work with it. Yeah.
They work with me. My
Hmm.
job
Yeah.
works with. Thank you all
There
that
you go.
you're listening out there. My
Yeah.
admin is listening to me. Thank you for working with me.
Thank
On
you,
days
job.
that I pick up, I'm allowed to get there at 9.
You still late?
right. He like, I know. Like,
Guilty.
guilty.
Are you
One
guilty too?
job I
Yes,
worked,
it's really
yeah,
bad. I was
for a
Listen,
whole year. I was supposed to be there at 7 and I would clock in every day at 7:27. I was 27 minutes late every day for a whole year and a half.
so to, so just to put this out there, since we're still on the ADHD thing, right?
Mhm.
Time blindness also accounts for being super, super early. There's no in between. Like literally, if you're dealing with somebody who's ADHD, either they show up someplace 45 minutes early, or they might be 25. Look, that's Steve Skywalker. He's looking at somebody and something. He's like, either you show up mad early or you're late. It's
We were trying not to.
I caught that side eye look. She
I
thought
caught
about you, baby.
it. That joint was hard. It was
Yeah.
diabolical. He's like,
Either super early or super late.
that's
Yeah.
it. That is it.
Okay, keep
You in trouble tonight, baby. You in trouble tonight. It's a wrap. You in trouble.
It's a
Mhm.
wrap. It is.
Yeah.
Yes. So just to put that
I'm
out
gonna
there.
try.
That's what I was wondering. So, with the medications, the natural and the performance medications, um, do you feel like that your ability to have that executive function does come back, or it just never will have?
It's still well, we just don't have it.
Just don't have.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have moments of where when you take some medications or if you're working on modalities. No, I take that back. We just have a lack of executive function. So it's like what the medicine does and what the therapies do and your strategies or whatever. It just helps you manage it. You can't get rid of it. Like we can't just all of a sudden just wake up one day and just have an executive function brain. Da 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 da. it
Mhm.
it just it just doesn't happen. We just have strategies to manage. So ADHD, any neurodivergence is a lesson in just trying to manage it. So
Mm.
yeah, and I like I said, I think I'm doing pretty good with managing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, speak
Hmm.
up to you.
Yeah, big up. Thank you. 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 Thank you for coming on. We
No,
greatly
thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. I really enjoy speaking about it, man, because like there's so many black kids, black girls. We go so undiagnosed because ours is inattentive. So if you're
Mhm.
listening out there, you think you might have it. Listen, don't suffer. Don't live your best life. Go get diagnosed and then get those resources. I'm really, really passionate about talking about black women. Oh, here's one more thing. A lot of black women don't get diagnosed until they're in their 30s and 40s. 50s and 60s and 70s. Literally, because of the fact that we were always the quiet kid who learned how to mask ourselves when we were young and in school, we were overachievers who were beating ourselves up because of the fact that we thought that we always had to be perfect. Like we masked ourselves and we learned how to mask ourselves. And then we had an extra layer of mask because we had generational trauma from being black.
Mm.
Hello. So
Mm.
I'm telling you, if you're in
Wow.
your 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s, late diagnosis, and here's another thing. The reason why I tell you if you're in your 30s and 40s to go get diagnosed and to go get some helps is because ADHD does not get better with age. Like you know how some doctors say, "Oh, you'll grow out of it." No, it gets worse with menopause. Worse. Worse. So
Ooh.
go and get some help. Yes, like with the hormones and everything else, your brain is like
Mm.
mush. It's like
Damn.
all
I
the
don't,
time.
I don't
Serious.
know if I would agree to that if I have it though, but I don't know if I have it. I
Oh, she
haven't been
said,
diagnosed, but I fit.
but you fit the
I got,
profile.
I fit the profile. But I think I'm getting better because what I'm trying to do, as far as my mental health is concerned,
Mhm,
even with the symptoms of the ADHD, and then the things that I see in my life that need balance, I'm just purposely focusing on those things, on correcting those things,
but you
Mm.
hear
and
what she said?
pulling within myself. Like I said, I don't
Yes.
want to be dependent upon any therapist or any type of medication. I really don't, and
Mhm,
I'm not against it, but I'm really just intentionally watching myself, paying attention
mhm,
to my behavior.
mhm,
I have my children to help me, to kind of put me in check, because we
mhm.
support each other, and making the correction,
You said
on
something. I'm sorry.
purpose.
Yes. You said something. You said balance. That's what it's all about. It's all about balancing. When you have ADHD, you're either all or nothing. You're either 100 or zero. You're either like it's a life of extremes. And if you don't, you are lucky because you not lucky, you are talented because of the fact that you have learned how to create balance within yourself. That is a gift that some people don't know how to deal with their entire life. Like seriously. So you are doing all of the work and like you just like seriously, like I had to learn balance because, like I said, I was all or nothing. Everything was black or white. Everything was, like I had a life of extremes. So, what these modalities and what the medicine does, what these natural remedies do, everything it just teaches you balance, balancing in your body, your spirit, your soul, your mind. So, yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you said that you were being intentional. Okay, I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna shut up now.
I got a suggestion. I'm so sorry. I got a suggestion for you, Ivy.
Mhm.
Yeah, you need to come out with a podcast about ADHD, a
Hey,
page, and focus and be an advocate for ADHD for Black women, Black girls, Black men, Black boys. You need to dedicate this page to ADHD.
you gonna get mad at me when I tell you what I'm about to tell you. I started on TikTok. I started like TikToking about ADHD. I called
Mm-hmm.
myself Inexpensive Ivy on TikTok. Then I lost the dopamine for it and I got bored.
She was gaining traction too, because I saw those videos. You were gaining some traction,
I
Why don't we
was
do
some
that? We
serious
get
some.
we get inspired, we started,
dopamine.
and then all of a sudden, one day
It's
we
like
just
wonder
stop.
My
Woman.
my dopamine is inspired by self-help. I love being able to help somebody. It helps
Yeah.
somebody discover something about themselves. And
You did.
I kid you not though, my video started after I talked about ADHD with you guys, and after I talked to one of your participants later. She was like, I never knew that that's what the issue could have been. She was like, I always thought I was different, and that inspired me. I was like, yeah, I do need to start talking about ADHD. And I was just I'm human, so it lost steam. But I was like, I'm gonna pick it back up at some point in time. Like what happens with sometimes it's like if the dopamine drops, then you're like you feel shame and guilt over not being what you thought that you should be.
Wow.
So I know that I have to get past that shame and guilt because I'm human and human people do stuff. So I'll pick it back up again. And I think maybe one of these days I'll start a blog. But thank you for suggestion. And once again, like thanks, you guys. Thank you so much. I'm really humbled and honored to be here. Like seriously,
Oh, thank you.
for
This
real.
is the number one podcast in the world doing it for the culture. I'm gonna put that out there every day. The number one
Okay.
podcast live doing it
Yeah.
for the culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, YouTube, everywhere we're at right now. Facebook, thank you. Number one podcast doing it for the culture. Yes.
For the culture. For the
Do
culture.
it for the culture.
The girl who came up with that is not here today. When she see this side eye, Oshun.
Diabolical side eye.
Yes. All right. Well, it is 8:44. We've passed our time. I try to be respectful of everyone's time. We try to stick to an hour and a half. But again, I want to thank you for coming on and being an open book for us this evening. I hope anyone who's watched has learned anything. Don't forget to go back and rewind and get those resources from ADD, Chad, and the last one was Attitude, ADD Attitude, for resources concerning ADHD. John, thank you for coming up with all these questions. Saba Diamond, he brought it back to that diet. King Newborn, you was actually quiet tonight, but okay. Creation Divine, baby, you are amazing, creating balance within yourself without the need of medication and knowing that this may be a possibility for you to have right now. Wonderful. Miss Amanda, our new co-host, baby, she just be jumping right in there with them questions. I love it. Keep it up, baby. This is things people don't want to talk about. Do we have any final thoughts before John takes over? All right. John, you got the floor, baby.
Sharafi was supposed to do it this week. So,
You
you, you know what? No. It's cool. Like I said, I'm always prepared. I'll always have something. It
always.
is Taurus season, and I want to push this one. Respect to the Tauruses out there. It's Taurus season. So I said, I'm back on my bull. Back on that bull like a bull whip. several levels above your thinking. You're one level up, like a pulpit. That means I'm overthinking when I'm thinking over things I ruminate to illuminate. Jump to conclusions till I'm losing weight. Call me Taurus. When I fight for your love, it's a kumite. Anything in the bullseye, gotta mark it, make it a target. I ain't talking department, stores, put a price on your head like a marksman. If you owe me, I'll be taking charge, whether it's leadership or credit cards. I accept both. Now, cough it up like strep throat. Money coming fast, but I'm slow to change. Earth sign. Yeah, you know my ways. I move like knights and queens, but I ain't playing games. I got a lot of drive. Stay in your lane. Because when I come marching in, you'll be shaken up like Parkinson's. Yo, don't start with him. I'm a little pushover, but my heart is big. Like, if your head right, I be there every night. Even when I'm on the go, I be running red lights. Like, you ain't on to me. So many money moves, I'm my own economy.
Mm.
I'm a force to be reckoned with, meaning I'm the force you don't want to be reckoned with. A hard worker, but I get complacent. I'm working on it and it's frustrating. Yeah. See, I work too hard not to be comfortable. My role models are the Huxtables. Venus is my ruling planet. I love the vacation, but we got to plan it. I'm that thorough and dependable. When I get my dough, I flex, but I'm inflexible. I suggest you respect the bull. I'm goofy yet still respectable, sensual, sensible, predictable. You know the bull is notable and so silly. People just quotable. I'm half introverted, half sociable. It's a pleasure to be this professional with a slight obsession with perfection, though. Giving, making me a little foul like B.O. Add two S's. That's just me, though. Taurus.
Ours.
Please.
I swear. John,
Splendid, splendid as always, brother. Splendid.
always.
Man.
He stay
Proud of
ready.
you.
Bars.
Even behind the trigger, stay ready. Brother says them entendres. This the entendre.
Double entendre.
There.
Several of them. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Stay in there.
Hang
Yeah.
in there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is things that people don't want to talk about. We are bringing awareness to Mental Health Awareness Month. Next week we will be talking about depression and anxiety, and we have a mental health therapist by the name of Fanny who will be joining us right now. She's in if I'm not mistaken, I think she said she was on her way to London the last time I spoke with her. So I look forward to having her on next week to talk about depression and anxiety. Again, thank you, Ivy Turner, for coming on and being an open book. I want to thank my co-host. I want to thank all our new people who are in the group right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do not be afraid to share the group, to share the live. Hit that like button. You already know what it is. This is things that people don't want to talk about. John,
Yes, ma'am. I got us. Salute.
salute.